We are presenting today the key highlights from Softletter's 2016 SaaS Direct Sales Compensation and Efficiency Report. And you've already heard from Rick Chapman, Managing Editor of Softletter. I would like to introduce myself in case you don't know me. I am Laura Stewart. I am with SaaSMAX, and I am the coordinator of webinars and the content. I'm a former MSP. I sold my company in 2009. And now I do business strategy work, and I also have a radio show on iHeartRadio. So I'm excited to be here today. The agenda for today is we're going to do a little introduction about SaaSMAX. We're going to introduce our speaker more fully, Rick Chapman, and then we'll discuss market overview and major trends, key highlights from Softletter's 2016 SaaS Direct Sales Report, and how you can learn more about the report and about SaaSMAX. Right now, I'd like to take the opportunity to introduce you to our main presenter for the show, not our main presenter, but our first presenter for the show today, Dina Moskowitz, founder and CEO of SaaSMAX. Dina, take it away.
Sure. Hi, Laura, and hi, Rick, and hi, everyone, and thank you all for showing up. It's a really great turnout that we see joining us today from all around the country and beyond and into Europe and Australia. And so thank you so much for taking the time at different points in your day to join us and hear about this information. To give you a brief overview, SaaSMAX, for those of you who are already part of our community, you know that our goal is creating a SaaS sales value chain for your business and helping SaaS vendors to find the right partners, the right resellers, which are companies that are typically trusted advisors, managed service providers in the IT space, value-added resellers. They may be CRM consultants. They may be a line of business consultants expert in your domain. But our goal really is to custom matchmake you to find the right partners faster, which reduces your cost and your time to market and expanding your channel. And we do that in addition to having unique matchmaking capabilities and mining capabilities and relationships. We also promote you through the channel with marketing. We can help you set up your reseller programs with micro consulting that's very effective and very fast. And we're also launching right now a pay-per-performance commerce platform, which means that not only is our website platform a directory and used for matching, but it's also used to enable partners as well as buyers to then sell your products through the platform. And we're soon launching reseller SaaS stores, which means that every one of the resellers in SaaSMAX who chooses to have a SaaS web store through SaaSMAX would then be able to promote your products and sell them through the SaaSMAX commerce platform. So we're really excited about the growth, and we look forward to talking with you more individually about it as we transition. Just giving you an overview, right now we have over 200 SaaS applications in the marketplace, all with reseller programs, whether they're wholesale programs or affiliate programs or retail commission or white label. We accommodate all types, and only typically the vendors who are joining SaaSMAX really are committed to building their sales through the business-to-business channel and the IT channel. And we have over 2,000 IT providers and other trusted advisors who are consultants and typically technology resellers or advisors that are in. And we also have been building our repertoire of media attention. We won a great award last week. We were voted Best Cloud Strategy for Solution Providers at a channel conference last week called the SMB Tech Fest. So we're having a lot of fun growing the ecosystem and really enjoy being able to bring these kinds of programs to you. Just want to let you know, on November 17th, if you live in the Southern California area, we would love you to come to our cybersecurity conference and mixer. It's at the WeWork facility, and it's just an evening of beer and food and networking and hearing from cloud security thought leaders about the product, about how to build a security as a service stack. So if you're a cybersecurity application and are interested in knowing how to get involved further in it or speak at it, let us know as well. And then secondly, more educational opportunities. On December 13th, we have another webinar, which it's our annual one where CompTIA joins us, and they present the state of the SaaS channel, which has a lot of great information all updated from the most recent research that they've done on the IT channel and how they're incorporating SaaS into their sales and portfolio. So our guest speaker today, I'm really excited to have here, Rick Chapman. He's someone I've known since when I first started SaaSMAX, and he was someone who has been very encouraging to us and has been a great visionary in the SaaS sector, who has been a SaaS entrepreneur himself and has been researching the SaaS sector from before I think it was actually called SaaS. And so if you ever have any question about anything going on in SaaS, Rick is a great resource for you, and I'm sure he'll encourage you to reach out, but I do as well. And so I just, on a personal level, I'm really excited to have him here and for him to share the information. And so, Rick, I'll let you introduce yourself a little further and take it from here.
Thank you very much, Dina. Hello, everyone. This is Rick Chapman, formerly known as Merrill Richard, Rick to my friends. I'm the managing editor of Softletter. I'll talk a little more about that in a second. I'm also a writer, and I'm also the COO of a new SaaS startup called Did It. Yes, we have a website. Unfortunately, it doesn't tell you very much. It's going to be a new B2B service launching in the spring of 2016. And without going into any great depth, we're changing business networking. And I think that when you see the system, you will agree. Next. Quick few notes about Softletter. It's an industry source for benchmarks, metrics, and information. We publish twice a month online. Softletter has been around since the 80s. It was originally founded by Jeff Tarter, a name that you old fogies out there will recognize. Each issue is packed with hard data.
Rick, we appear to have lost you. If you can still hear us, can you check your audio?
There? Rick?
Everybody, if you can just hold on one moment. Rick, are you back? All right.
Well,
gotta love the powers of the internet here.
Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, do you want to walk?
Tina, why don't you pick up, and I'm going to try to get Rick back on.
Absolutely, yeah. So Softletter is the research arm from which Rick has performed the research, and there's a subscription that you could do if you want more information on it. But he'll be revealing a lot of the information today. And so first, the first focus that he has is, Rick, are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, great. So take it from here.
Okay. We're going to take a look. Just hold on a second. Okay. This is where the data for this report came from. It was a survey that we've run. This is the third time we've run this particular survey. We had 258 senior executives respond, answering about 100 questions in all. Many of our surveys are major affairs. 46% were senior managers. The balance of them were VPs or senior direct sales managers. This is the third edition of this report, and it was just released last month. Next slide. I just want to define what we mean by direct sales representatives before we go any further. We defined in the report sales as direct salespeople as sales personnel who regularly meet with prospects at their headquarters or related facilities during a sales cycle. Now, we understand that in today's modern sales environment, remote demonstrations, communications via such vehicles as Skype and other means are increasingly being used. But nonetheless, when you're talking about major sales, especially into larger companies or what we often call enterprise firms, people are going to have to meet. There's going to be face-to-face interaction. There's almost always a series of trips or visits to major stakeholders during the sales cycle, and then the sale closes. Now, I just want to make it clear that we're not going to be discussing today telesales or internal sales forces. Those are sales forces that do not, nor are they expected to meet on a face-to-face basis. Some of you may be asking, how do you define the two? Without going into any great detail at this point, most of the time when you go above $10,000, maybe $20,000 on a deal, you've moved into the environment of direct sales. Underneath that, you are probably working in the world of telesales or internal sales. So let's just take a quick look at the development stages of the companies that we are looking at. First thing is this is the type of people that took the survey, the type of firms, no significant customer revenue, privately owned, privately funded, privately owned, venture funded, and public. These numbers tend to be very stable over the years that we've been doing our surveys and reports. The one thing I will point out is that the 20% public is a very high number and growing every year because the SaaS model has become the dominant model and more companies are going into IPOs. When we first started doing these series of surveys, it was like 1 or 2%. Next slide. This is the company revenue size of the breakdown of the firms that participated. Again, nothing terribly exciting except the fact that the 101 million plus cohort is growing steadily. Another indication of the growth and acceptance of SaaS. Next slide. Primary market, this dealt with who are you selling to. And you'll notice that overwhelmingly the respondents were business to business. SaaS has always been dominated by business to business companies. Yes, there are major business to consumer firms out there, and there are a handful that do B2B and B2C, but the people who tend to come to our surveys and digest our information are B2B. Next slide. Average size of companies who purchase from you, businesses with over 100 million in sales, businesses mid-market, small business, government, and other. The others are almost always a mix of mid-market and small businesses. So these are the type of people who you are selling to. Next slide. Okay. Do you sell your SaaS system via direct sales? Yes, 78%. No, 22%. One of the points I'd like to make about SaaS and the direct sales model is that early predictions that direct sales would disappear because, well, we can do everything online. We can communicate, we can send collateral, we have websites, we can do demos, we can set up trial access, all remotely. One of the early predictions based on all of these realities is that direct sales would go away. It'd all be done online. These have not proved out. However, I will say that over the years we have seen a slow shrinkage of the number of companies that say, yes, we use direct sales. When we first did our first surveys of this data point, I'd say it was like 93, 94%. I also have to warn you, however, that we don't anticipate seeing much shrinkage beyond this point. And the fact is, and the reason is, and the fact is that when significant amounts of money are going to change hands between companies, there's almost an overwhelming need to look into someone's eyes, get them in front of you, query them person to person, and close that deal on a personal basis. It's a basic human instinct and need. Next slide.
Great. And Rick, can I just ask you,
Sure.
in terms of the indirect sales or outbound, inside sales, I guess you'd say, have you seen a trend of increase in the number of inside salespeople?
Well, there are two ways to answer that. One is yes, but if you are, say, selling a $100,000 deal package, and you could be a Salesforce.com selling that. You might be selling Salesforce.com to a major auto company, for instance. You're not going to close that deal on a remote basis. You're going to go up to Michigan. You're going to sit in Ford's executive suite at some point, and you're going to deal face-to-face. Now, if your deal sizes typically trend below 20,000 or 10,000, yes. But this survey does not look at how the other ways that companies are selling. One of the things we've definitely seen is increase in both the use of internal sales forces and indirect marketing. So while direct sales forces are not going away, they are being supplemented increasingly by indirect marketing and telesales. But it will depend a great deal sometimes on what type of market you're playing in and what your average deal size is. And just to give you, do you sell software via direct service sales? This is a cross tab. You'll notice that 100% of 100 million plus companies say that they use direct sales. That doesn't mean that they're only using direct sales, but it means that all of them have direct sales departments. And I'd just like to address a couple of common myths. I think we've all heard about an Aussie company called Atlassian. I may be pronouncing that incorrectly, but they've been making a big splash in the marketplace. And one of the things they've been telling people in fairly high volume is, well, we don't have a sales force. And that was true until recently. But as more and more people began to adopt their system, opportunities for enterprise sales appeared. And guess what? Atlassian now has a direct sales force. It's not their primary means of generating sales, but for certain deal sizes, it's obligatory. 26 to 100 million, notice again, if you're that size company, you're going to have a direct sales force. And then as you become a smaller company, you shift away from direct sales. And one of the reasons for that is that when you're in startup mode and your revenues are relatively low, you, the CEO, or you, the co-founder, or you, the VP of sales, is the sales force. So you still may be using direct sales, but you're not going to be hiring people. It costs money to hire good salespeople. We'll be looking at that a little later. Next slide. Sales org and performance. How are sales forces being organized in SaaS companies? You'll notice that the dominant model is regionally by geography. That has always been the dominant model in software. And it made sense in many respects. You had local companies, you had local distributors, you had local stores that you had to service, and it made sense to use a regionally based sales company to manage that. However, over the years, we've noticed that 22% in this report, and this is continuing to grow, that increasingly SaaS companies are organizing themselves by customer type and vertically. Now, this may or may not make sense for your company. It really depends, again, on the market and the industries that you address, but it's an important trend to keep hold of. Named accounts. In some cases, you'll see new business versus renewal business. Many SaaS companies are making the decision to break their sales forces into it's called the hunter-gatherer model. I myself am not a tremendous advocate of that model, but many SaaS companies are having success with it. And you'll notice that 17%, a very significant number, are doing that. It tends to be done by larger companies who tend to segment and regiment themselves more along those lines. New business versus renewal business, as I said, and others. And others is almost always a mix of new business and regional or vertical. Next slide. Okay, this is an important slide because it gives you some ideas into how quickly your deals should close. Now, one of the interesting things about this slide and about all the research that we've conducted on software as a service is that sales cycles are tremendously accelerated over the old days of selling big wads of code that was mounted on servers, through fistfuls of CDs or downloaded into gigabytes to remote hardware, where it was then tended over by flocks of IT geeks wearing glasses and having and armored with pocket protectors. In SaaS, it's very different. I mean, in the old days, it would not be uncommon for a major deal to span a year, 12 months, 18 months, 24 months was not uncommon. That almost never occurs in SaaS, with some outliers, with some exceptions. For instance, the telecom industry. Sales cycles in the telecom industry take forever. I don't know if they're 24 months, but they're pretty bad because telecom companies are hard to deal with. They've got very complex infrastructure issues, very complex systems in place. They're paranoid about some glitch in the system somewhere, taking, like Verizon offline for a week. So sales cycles are slow as well as implementation. But those are outliers. Notice that 19% reported sales cycles 180 plus days. Now notice what the cohorts are for 61 to 90 and 91 to 120 days, 25 and 16%. It is very rare in SaaS to see a sales cycle that goes past 180 days. You have to be an outlier in a market such as the telecom industry that I just discussed. Next slide. This is a crosstab. By the way, in the report, almost all of the major questions are cross-tabbed by at least one, sometimes three separate criteria. And the idea is to allow you to look and get an at-a-glance view of where you should be fitting into this cross-tabulation, into the spectrum of the market, and get a feel for whether you're performing or underperforming within your sector. You'll notice that, as you would expect, at 100 million, 180 plus day implementation and sales cycles are not uncommon. I can tell you that after this, it drops off. One of the reasons we didn't go like 240 or 300 days or other numbers is the cohort just vanishes. So that's why we sort of stopped at 180. And you can see as you look down the table that as you get larger and you're dealing with larger companies, the sales cycles tend to shrink and become more and more rapid. You notice that if you're selling to a small business, 20% under 30 days, 31 to 60 days, 61 to 90 days. So sales cycles are much more compressed in SaaS, and the smaller you are, the faster you should be closing business. If you're not, then there may be something wrong and you need to take a look at what's going on with your company. Next slide.
And Rick, one question for you here is,
sure,
the pricing of the application have an impact on how long it takes for a new sale to close? I think your answer may be depending on the deal size, right? But in terms of pricing of the application, is there any correlation?
Yes, the cheaper you are, the faster. Obviously, the correlation is the less expensive your application is, the more quickly you close. But remember, when you're dealing with a direct sales force, the direct sales force is not going out there and selling, single licenses. Sorry, single subscriptions. We don't license anymore. We don't use that word in SaaS. You're not going to be selling $59.95 or $99.95 monthly subscriptions to a company using a direct sales force. That will be done with internal sales groups, or indirectly by someone coming to your website, taking a look at what you're offering, doing their due diligence and saying, yes, I'm going to sign up. What we're going to be talking about here is you might be selling HVAC to a regional organization, or to a large manufacturer, or to a large service provider. And that's when you get into the need for a direct sales force. But again, there is a direct correlation between smaller deal sizes and faster deal closing. This is a part of the presentation I'm going to spend a little time on because I have been surprised by the number of SaaS companies that have gotten themselves into serious hot water by not understanding that if you have sales personnel, they have to be paid, and they have to be paid on a timely basis. Now, this is particularly important for you companies that are in your startup and ramp up to growth mode. You cannot expect reasonably to build your company's revenues on the back of your salespeople's base and commissions. Do not do that. If you do it, you will get yourself into a vicious cycle where your turnover will be high, your productivity will be low, and one of these days, Mr. Government is going to appear on your doorstep. Let me give you a practical example of what I'm talking about. In the state of Maryland, you can't close a deal, promise a commission, and then turn around if the customer is late in paying and look at your salesperson and say, well, you know, they didn't pay, so you're not getting your commission. No, no, no. The state labor commission is going to knock on your door and go, you've got to pay these people. Now, that may not be true in Virginia, the state next door. Might not be true in New York, though I think it is. But this is driven very heavily by regional and state laws and regulations. And don't even think of not paying base. You will have to pay base. You will be visited by state labor regulators, and you do not want to have these type of issues taking place with your company. And also, you know, there's an old adage in sales. It's called doggy do trick, doggy get bone. Once you've committed to paying someone on a timely basis, they're running their lives, paying their mortgage, feeding their kids, doing all of that based upon your promises to them that if they achieve certain goals, they will be paid. And they really don't want to hear about, well, you know, there was a crash with the system and the customer was unhappy and they're holding up payment because, you know, they don't like the service. That's your problem. Their issue is they performed according to the plan that you have put in front of them, according to the metrics that you have burdened them with, said this is your goals, this is what you've got to do, go ahead and pay me. So as I said, there are legal issues, there are regulatory issues, and there are performance issues that all spring around not paying promptly. And you'll notice when do people immediately, in some cases it's, you know, bang, low, but if you can afford to, immediate payment is the best gratification anyone can enjoy. Now you're really, you know, incenting me to get out there and move. 22% within 3 months, within a month, 22% again, within 3 months, 22%. In other words, you should expect in 80–90% of the time that you're going to have to pay people within 3 months, and I tell you, you should really pay them within 45 days if at all possible. Don't play around with paying your salespeople. Next slide.
Well, Rick, I just want to emphasize here that this is not only important information for a direct sales force, but as well for your reseller channel force, because similarly, they are basing their livelihood on selling those products and servicing those clients. And if you're not going to honor them with commission as they've earned it, they will find other products that are competing that will, and they will find ones, you know, they do care about the quality of your product and how great it is, and especially if it's been working. But again, if you don't treat them like your own sales force and compensate them at a time in a reasonable time period, you're going to lose them, or you're going to lose the engagement and activation that you have with them. So please know that when you're developing your channel programs and designing these pieces of it, please definitely consider whether it's affiliate program or a reseller or a wholesale program, definitely pay them as soon as you possibly can. Do not let things accrue to $50 or $100 before you release the fee, like many do in affiliate programs, because that reseller will lose their incentive to keep going. You want to make sure that they know that you're appreciating their performance.
Yeah, and let me just expound a little bit on this. My father started off his professional career as a stockbroker and made a career change, became a lawyer. And his niche was going after stockbrokers, you know, Merrill, A.G. Edwards, you know, the usual culprits, when they would withhold commissions from their salespeople. In other words, the person who you think of as a stockbroker is really a salesperson who sells you stock, gets a commission. The brokerage also makes money on the transaction. So he learned about the state labor laws of New York, would go out, take all of these cases into arbitration, usually, and he never lost the case, not once. Next slide.
Interesting.
Okay, let's talk about some rubber, where the rubber hits the road numbers. What are you going to have to pay a salesperson? Now, Dina and I had some back and forth on this, and I just finally said, you know, it's like, oh, many SaaS companies can't afford to pay these type of salespeople. This is salaries to salespeople. And by the way, what we're talking about here is earnings, base and commissions. I tend to use the phrase variable, average variable payment or compensation, because not all compensation is based upon a commission. In some cases, I've seen situations where SaaS companies have offset living expenses, provided transportation, even food allowances, anything to hold on to cash where at all possible. I've seen some really funny examples of small companies where, well, you hired a salesperson, you couldn't pay them what they really deserved, but someone would like park them in a rental property they own. In one really funny case, I want to get into the big details, this person moved in with their mother for a few months, didn't have to pay rent. So variable compensation can include commission, but some other things. But if you want to hire a good salesperson, by the way, I'm talking good, I'm not talking world beater. I'm not talking superstar. I'm talking about a competent salesperson who's familiar with your market, with your industry. You're going to be paying them six figures when you put together their base and when you put together their variable comp, because that's how much it costs. And there's no breakdown here today by geography, but you're not going to get away with paying a high-quality salesperson in the San Francisco area, in the Valley, for anything less than 150 to 160. I mean, you can try and find the cheaper people. You'll get what you pay for. And this ties back to you smaller companies. If you're thinking about building a sales force now, you're ready to make your first hire, be aware that it's going to cost you money. You're going to have to pay a goodly sum for good performance. You're going to have to pay much higher for superstar performance. You're going to have to pay on a timely basis, and your cash flow is going to have to support this. If you cannot do this, do not hire a salesperson. One of you co-founders, put on your VP of sales pants or dress, as the case may be, and go out and be the salesperson. But once you make the commitment to hire, understand it's going to cost you. Now, again, we're talking direct sales forces. Telesales are paid less. You can, depending upon the region of the country you are and your marketplace, get decent telesales people between 60 to 100,000 usually. That's including all compensation. I have to warn you, though, that even in those industries, the trend is pushing towards higher salaries. So be very aware of what you're going to have to pay out and what you're going to have to manage and the impact on your cash flow before you start to engage a direct sales group. Next slide. Primary compensation method. How are most SaaS companies structuring their sales payouts? And you can see the overwhelming number is base plus commissions. Now, when the SaaS model first came to prominence in the industry, this number was not that high. There was a lot of experimentation taking place. People thought that because of the remote nature of SaaS, the online communications, that the commission-only model might be suitable. I can tell you that I have to tell you that the commission only model is usually only applicable to certain types of industries, some of them not that savory, I have to be honest with you. It is not a good fit to the SaaS environment. It's associated also with boilerplate operations. And I also have to tell you that the base salary plus incentive bonuses is really, in most cases, simply a disguised base plus commissions. There is one exception, and it's a very rare one. I've seen it a couple of times in which commission only is a fit to a SaaS company, and that's a situation where you're prepared to basically let the salesperson make as much money as they can. I mean, they're going to be looking, if they are a superstar, and usually only superstars will be even will even think about accepting a commission-only deal, and then they'll only think about it if they're looking at making $250,000 to $500,000, in some cases $1 million a year. Yeah, they'll work for commission only, but they expect those commissions to be big. They expect to make a lot of money. They expect to be paid in full. And again, you have to think about your cost structure. Of course, if a salesperson is bringing in $1 million worth of business, well, actually $10 million of business a year and getting 10% of that, well, is that a good deal for your company or not? In many cases, it will be. These situations, however, are very rare. I wonder if anyone in the audience is actually doing commission only at the end of the session, if you'd like to ask a couple of questions or make some observations to us. Very interested in hearing it.
Well,
Next slide.
This is Dina.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Well, I just want to emphasize is, building an indirect reseller channel program is one way to get feet on the street for a commission-only, type of compensation structure. Now, that said, you're going to have to invest the time to onboard and train them and recruit them and engage them and activate them. But it is one way, and a very strong way, to be able to build a direct sales force where they already have they already have trusted relationships with probably 30 to 60 clients each for them to upsell your products to their client base. So that is an alternative, and it's becoming more and more popular, as we know, because of the growth of SaaSMAX. But definitely consider that. And it doesn't mean that it's a replacement for a direct sales force by any means, but it is an excellent alternative source when you're looking to grow and you have less resources internally to be able to reach Main Street.
And along those lines, we don't cover this in this report. In this session, because we have way too much data. Right. If you could go back a couple of slides.
Sorry about that. There it
is. You probably, many companies do this. We asked in the survey, do you max out? Do you limit the amount of compensation a salesperson can make? And as we all know, I believe most companies do. I personally think that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of, and you better not do that when someone's operating under the yearly plan. But if someone is performing like gangbusters, why are you worrying about how much they're making? Worry about how much you're making. Okay, yearly SaaS variable commission rates. These numbers are kind of interesting. You'll notice 1 to 4.9%, 5%. You're not going to get away with 5% commissions in SaaS these days. You're going to have to pay more money. You'll notice that the sweet spot is between 7.1 to 9.1 to 10%. Now, if you're a larger company, the amount of commissions you pay out, next slide, tends to go down. And if you're a smaller company, it tends to rise, and the reason is often very simple. If you're a smaller company, you'll pay higher commissions but pay lower bases, and you're basically paying more for performance. In larger companies, you've got more stable markets. Salespeople are usually not quite as entrepreneurial, nor do they feel they have to be. So you will tend to pay more in the mid-range. You're never going to get away with paying 1 to 5% in direct sales, but you're also not going to be paying out 10% plus in many cases. So this is an interesting slide to study and chart yourself, your company size and its sales journey, and see where you fit in this universe. Next slide. Okay. We asked this slide because we put this slide up because we wanted to know something about how SaaS companies were dealing with paying their sales force. This can be an extremely complex process, as I think anyone who's ever been in a sales organization understands. You have to deal with the kickers, the overrides, and the kickers. You have to deal with, God help us, clawbacks, and that can get bloody. You have to deal with, well, if the customer didn't pay, what exactly are your obligations? Remember what we talked about earlier. You have to deal with a myriad of variables. And it's such a complex operation that I was frankly very surprised to see that 73% of companies are not using compensation tools such as Colitis, and there's several others out there. And the reason I was surprised is I think that if you're a very small company, I can understand not using a compensation tool, but if you're 6 to 10 million in revenue or growing, I think you're cutting your own throat by not using such a tool. And by the way, I have no association with any sales compensation company. I've had some of them speak at our conferences in the past, but I have no stake in this particular game. And one of the reasons I also believe it's such a mistake to not use a compensation tool. And by the way, if you can do one internally, that's fine. God love you. It's probably not your core capability, but you may have a genius out there who's feels good about taking their Excel spreadsheets, which everyone knows if you're not using a compensation tool, that's what you're using to track compensation, compiling and putting them online and using them as your internal tool. But if you are not compensating someone with a formal tool whose parameters are understood and accepted by your sales force, this is what's taking place in their spare time and sometimes on your time on every salesperson's desk. They have a shadow spreadsheet where they are tracking their compensation and their percentages and their commissions against what you say you're paying. And if they see a variance, they're going to be very unhappy and you're going to hear about it. Now you have less, they always have these shadow spreadsheets. So if you have a compensation tool, they will still have the shadow spreadsheets, but they will tend to waste less of your valuable time checking them out and cross-checking against what they're being paid and what they're receiving in their wage envelopes. So there are no envelopes anymore, but you get the drift. Next. Next slide. The internet is latent today, I see.
This isn't, you were just on the prior one, right? This is sales training.
Yes, ongoing sales training.
Right.
Okay, I'll go back. This was interesting. This is a question that we like to ask always. Do you have ongoing sales training programs? When we first asked it, almost no one had ongoing sales training programs. Companies were small, they were scrambling, they felt they didn't have to take time, and they didn't have the time to regularly train their salespeople, bring them up to date on new techniques and new trends in SaaS sales. This has been growing steadily. This is the highest number we've ever seen, 40%. If you are a larger company and can afford it, we do recommend you put your sales groups through regular sales training. You invariably will see an increase in productivity and efficiency, at least for a while, until the market shifts and expectations change again, and then it's time to reorient them and retrain them. One of the things that is good about sales training is that it refreshes everyone's mind as to what the current sales jargon is in use, because your customers actually use the same jargon. If they hear you using old phrases and old concepts, well, they think you're an old company. So ongoing sales training is a good refresh for many companies. Next slide. Okay. This part of the presentation is derived from our soon-to-be released SaaS report. And by soon-to-be released, I mean next Thursday. I'm not joking, next Thursday. This is the oldest and one of the most widely respected and used sources of information in the industry about the SaaS model. I actually created the first report in 2006, a period of time in which there were just no metrics and no numbers about the SaaS industry. And it's a very large report. We have a special offer for you at the end of the presentation. And it covers just about every aspect of the SaaS model: infrastructure, community integration and analytics, and a section of it is dedicated to VARs. By the way, we're looking at this not from the viewpoint of your resellers. This is your viewpoint, the SaaS vendors' usage of channels and your attitudes towards channels. So this is good news, especially for Dina. When the SaaS model first rose to prominence, there was a lot of discussion. Was there a need for channels? After all, you as a SaaS vendor can never be truly disintermediated from your channel the way it was possible in the days of desktop software and server-based systems. You always know what your customers are doing. You can always generate information on their usage. You are always in a position to reach out and talk to them. And there was a great deal of dispute as to whether the channel would wither away. And I'll be honest with you, I thought for a while the answer was probably. Well, I'm glad that I've been doing these surveys over the years, and Softletter has been keeping track of the situation because we were wrong. This year, for the first time, a plurality of respondents to our report said yes, they have a channel. And you'll notice that 12% are planning to build a channel. No is 42%. So channels are alive, well, a growing factor in the marketplace. And if you think about it, SaaS channels, why do you have channels, by the way? For the same reason you always did, because a channel enables you to address markets and niches that you as a company are probably not in the best position to address. It's not your core competency. And because a channel can reach areas of the country, of the world, industries that you don't have strong entree into. So that's why you have channels. That's why you're probably going to be interested in building one. Not initially. You normally are going to start with your building up to your core competency as a company and then building out a channel. But you are, in many cases, yes, you are going to build a channel. And in many respects, SaaS channels are wonderful. For the reasons I already mentioned, you can't be disintermediated. You always are in control of at least understanding what your channel resellers, customers are doing. You are in a position where things go wrong, you can probably maintain contact with those customers. So channels are good.
Yeah.
Next slide.
And Rick, I just want to emphasize here as well that many companies who use technology consultants, which are these value-added resellers or others, are looking to them for solutions, which means they're not always just looking for a single app to solve their corporate problems. And so technology consultants are the ones who are putting the pieces of the puzzle together. And we find in SaaSMAX that, many early stage SaaS companies think that they have the best solution and so everyone should want it. Well, the reality is that you have one component or one piece of software that fits into this organization in one area or perhaps many areas. And if you want it to be included in a bigger solution that solves an organization's overall efficiency problems or profitability, having a VAR in the middle to help ensure that your product is bundled with an entire solution is a really important thing to consider.
It is, and if you can go to the next slide, there's something I'd like to add to that. And by the way, just a quick point of clarification. We are talking here right now about value-added resellers in very much the classic sense, but there are other components that can comprise a channel. You'll take a quick look at this slide. How many VARs do you have? 1 to 5%. That's sort of like your starting point, usually used by smaller companies as you begin to go and build out that channel. You'll notice the 100 plus 20%. Again, we've never seen numbers this high. It's a strong indicator of how channels are being accepted and growing in SaaS. But if you go to the next slide, there are other components, and we'll just take a quick look. VAR margins. I really want to stop for a second on this one. VAR margins, what are you going to have to give away? 6 to 15% usually, or 16 to 30%. And that's pretty much where VAR margins have stopped and stabilized. Usually in the 6, there's a range there, but 6 to 15%, let's think more about 15% for the VAR or up to 30%. Now, another reason why channels are wonderful is it was very common in the old, before SaaS days, to hand over 40 points, 45 points, 50 points. We saw deals, and some of you may have seen them, where you were giving away 50 to 60 points to the channel. A lot of times you had no choice. They were the people who really controlled the customer when it came right down to it, and you had to buy your way into a marketplace. But with SaaS, it's different. You can't be cut off from your customers. You're providing the overhead for the application. That is reflected in the margins that you pay out. Next slide.
Yeah, and Rick, did you study at all the tail end and the recurring commissions? Because I think that's an important thing to note as well.
Yeah, yes, we actually, in the SaaS report, we actually broke that out. And there are models in which you have a situation which you may pay someone a one-time payment and give them a commission, and then you give them less money as a result of that. So the type of recurring relationship can differ. It gets really complex sometimes to keep track of all this, because there are so many variants and hybrids that are constantly floating around. But if you're talking about a classic recurring commission, the resellers made a commitment to you. You have an ongoing relationship. They're selling your service on an ongoing basis. These are the standard commission ranges you can expect to deal with. But we've seen, every other type of deal under the sun. There's really nothing that you can't do in SaaS when it comes to this type of thing.
Right. And the main thing there to keep in mind is, remember, they're part of your indirect but yet direct sales force, and you want to keep them happy and keep them incentivized. And if you don't continue to keep them in the recurring piece of it, they may decide or find another solution that would pay them more. And so their loyalty may...
They will find another solution. They're not going to sit there and moan and hang themselves. Romeo and Juliet. Oh, I have lost my Romeo. Well, I'm going to go out and get another Romeo. Thank you very much. I'm not committing suicide. Okay, right. because you bugged out. Okay.
Right, and exactly. And then the other piece of that as well is, like you were saying, to manage the commissions for an indirect sales force can also be a very big headache. And so the more consistent and the less changes, or first month this, second month this, recurring this, that's more complicated, and it's going to be harder for your team to manage. And in effect, it's an operational inefficiency that you're creating by shifting those commissions as opposed to keeping them steady. So keep that in mind as well.
And one of the things that we asked in the SaaS report is, do you use a PRM system to manage this? I mean, SaaS has a solution for managing SaaS resellers. They're called Partner Relationship Management Tools. There are other acronyms out there. And if you're building a channel of any size, we do recommend you look seriously into implementing those type of systems. They can make your life a lot easier.
Right. And Rick, that's actually one of the reasons we've moved to and are transitioning into the commerce platform, is that many of our resellers have asked us for the one-stop shop, so they could manage all their commissions and margins in one place, and similarly, as well as all the processing fees and collection. And on the vendor side, we've had a lot of interest as well. So we're basically adding that piece to our puzzle so that we're streamlining those processes. So we're seeing it out there.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry. If you're a vendor of any size and you've got a channel of any size, go invest in a good PRM. I strongly recommend it.
Yep.
And we'll just take a quick look at some other components of what a SaaS channel can consist of. SaaS affiliates. Affiliates are companies that basically are reselling your product. This is a time when they often get a one-shot revenue. They do not enjoy the recurring revenue stream, and when they do, it's usually at a much lower percentage. So this is usually, affiliates are usually used by companies with smaller deals, smaller sized products, and it's a one-shot deal where you resell it, you get your revenue, and you tend to go away. You do not own the customer relationship the way a VAR does in that type of channel arrangement. Again, with affiliates, there's lots of hybrid arrangements where you get some recurring revenue, you get some recurring revenue for a certain period of time, et cetera, but this is the classic numbers for affiliate relations, and 27%, highest we've ever seen.
Sorry.
Aggregators. aggregators are guys like Jamcracker and similar companies. They're trying to become distributors. They've never gotten huge acceptance in the marketplace, but again, 15% is the highest we've ever seen. Next slide. Distributors never really had much of a role to play in SaaS, but they're trying to get back into the game. There's really, it's hard to justify the existence of a two-tier distribution system, the classic model that was used in desktop software and retail, but they would like to be part of the mix, and they are trying to climb back in, selling higher-end solutions and using their size and bulk to, in theory, build professional sales, implementation, and services groups. I'm not sure they're going to succeed. One aspect of the SaaS channel mix that we do not cover today are agents. If you subscribe to Softletter, we have just published an excellent two-part article written by Mitch Russo, who built out an incredibly efficient agent program for his company's time slips and for Sage Software, big name in accounting. And agent programs are another channel component where you have professionals who address market niches and industries. They are paid recurring revenues. They become a very effective indirect sales force for your company, and they are, and it can be a very important factor for many SaaS companies. Accounting is the classic example of the agent model in action. So, just before we, go on, Dina,
I was going to say, I know we have a lot of questions to cover, and we're running out of time. So I wanted to see if, yeah.
I'll stay. We can go a little longer. We didn't start exactly at 1, so we got questions. I'll be here. I'll just stick around and answer every question that everyone has. Okay. So just a quick call out to the attendees. We have a SaaS company staffing survey that's running right now. It's a live link in the demo deck, and you can go to the Softletter website, go to under the Contents tab, and take the survey. We'll send you a follow-up email after this session and give you the link, make things easy for you. Okay? If you take the survey, you get a free copy of my book, Selling Steve Jobs' Liver, a story of startups, innovation, and connectivity in the clouds. It's a novel that I have recently written, and it is indeed about, well, one of the most demented startup models you'll ever see, but I had a lot of fun writing it. And it is indeed about selling Steve Jobs' liver. This is the obligatory, here's our special offer. If you wish to purchase the SaaS Direct Sales Compensation Efficiency Report, you can save $100 off the introductory price by using the coupon below. You've got till November 7th to take advantage of this offer. Next slide, next offer. And if you become a Softletter partner subscriber, you do that by going to the site, hitting subscribe on the left hand. There's several options. The $7.99 option is our most expensive. You'll receive a Softletter subscription. You get access to all the back issues to 2004. You'll get a downloadable copy of the sales compensation report, the one that you're seeing today, which you can get for $400, but you'll also get our financial and lead generation reports. All of these are in the process of being updated, and you also get my book, SaaS Entrepreneur, which is about being a SaaS entrepreneur. 400-page book, virtual DVDs, goals and sale and success checklists, very comprehensive. Could you go back again, Dina?
Sure.
And I want to finish. You get also a downloadable copy of the Softletter SaaS report. This is about 500 pages. That's where that channel data came from. It's $600 by itself at its introductory price. If you become a partner subscriber, you will get it for nothing. So we think that's a pretty good deal. And again, this is available through November 7th. Next slide. Okay, it's time for questions. What are your questions?
Okay, Laura. Laura's going to read them off.
There's so much great content in there. Okay, so we have a number of questions. The first one being from, and if I pronounce your names wrong, forgive me, Gabriella Berhain. If you are a very small company, what is the average base for a great direct salesperson?
Well, the averaged base will be around 50K. Now, do you wish to bring that base down? Then offer very generous commissions. If you can't, and you must do that, lower base, higher commissions. That's the way it always works. So if you're going to offer a base of 30K, then you should anticipate handing out 10% plus commissions. Now, one way to offset the cost, and it's a way that you may not want to do, is equity. If you offer equity, and you will usually only do this in the case, usually only do this in the case of a sales superstar, someone who you think can generate millions of potential dollars in sales, then you might offer them equity. Of course, equity is very expensive to give away. It's very, and a lot of people won't be interested in it because you can't eat equity and you can't pay a mortgage with equity. And who knows when the equity will pay off. So do not anticipate going lower than 30,000 and budget for 50. And if you go 30, be very, very generous with those commissions. And of course, these are points in the X and Y axis. You can negotiate. You can do, as I said, other things that sometimes offset costs for the salesperson. But those are ranges that you can start with.
Okay. Next question is from Joe Finizio. What percentage overhead do you factor into the total comp expense? Base plus commission plus overhead equal total staff expense.
When you say overhead, Joe, what do you mean? You mean the cost of buying their software, the cost of supplying them with a computer? Is that the type of overhead that you mean? I mean, that usually comes out of G&A, and G&A is typically 8 to 9% of a software company's business cost of operations. So we tend not to include sales overhead of that type into your compensation packages. We break that off into G&A. Okay,
so in the numbers that you used on the slides and the percentages, overhead was not a factor at all.
Overhead was not a factor at all. We were only looking at commission and variable compensation, not sales overhead. I don't think, I mean, some companies do bundle it together, but most GAAP statistics will tend to break that out into G&A.
Okay, and he put a follow-up in here. He was thinking insurance, etc. Worried about comp, trying to get total HR expense for the P&L.
We did not focus on that in this report. We only focused on commissions and salaries basis. We did not ask questions about, how much is it going to cost you to insure? What is your sales plan going to? What is your medical plan going to cost you? You can usually, those numbers are pretty standard across industries. There's always an overhead involved in that. Usually, your package will probably add another 15 to 20% to that number, but we only were asking about commissions and variable comp. We didn't ask, well, what's the cost of your HR going to be as part of the overall cost of having a salesperson, your taxes, all of those things. We didn't cover those.
Joe says thanks.
You're welcome.
Next question is from Wanda Lee. What are these VAR margins of? Margins out of sale or gross profit? How does pricing come into play with VAR?
VAR margins are what the VAR receives for selling your product at whatever negotiated price point they're going to be selling it at. This is a matter of negotiation. If your product costs $100 and the VAR is getting 30 points, they're getting $30 on every sale that they make. Now, is the VAR going to control the pricing of the product, or are you? In the old days, it was not uncommon for VARs to discount very vigorously and then ask for commissions on the retail price, which they weren't supposed to get, but it got interesting from time to time. As the SaaS vendor, you are in position to control to a greater extent the pricing of your product. So if you are giving the VAR the ability to have a 15% discount, then it would be 30% of what the $85 is. But margin is the amount that they make in return for reselling your product at a particular agreed upon price.
Great. If when Rick is answering any of these questions, you have a follow-up question to it, or if we have not answered your question, please post in the questions and I will be checking that back. Next question is from Keith Bellew. Can you recommend a PRM solution?
I am going to pass on answering that because I try to stand above recommending particular products. There are a couple of good PRM products. There are several that I'm not that enthusiastic about. So I will pass on giving a particular recommendation. I will say, in deference to our host, give Dina's solution a look. I mean, she's going to have a lot of in-depth expertise with her product, but I'm not going to recommend a PRM at this time. There are several of them out there. I would recommend you do your own research on that.
Right, and on that front, SaaSMAX is not necessarily a soup to nuts PRM in the way that you may be looking for. We may have some recommendations for you depending on your company, your size, your program size. We do have a WordPress reseller portal for companies who have less than 200 partners who would want to get that up and running very easily with all the copy and forms and everything you would need to get that up. It's not going to manage your back end. As far as the commissions and all of that, we have and know of other tools that we could use either through SaaSMAX or through partners, but again, it depends upon your specific needs, the type of reseller program you have, and the amount of manpower behind your channel. So we'd be happy to talk with you about that offline.
Yeah, let me just say that, you know, there are, as Dina said, a fully blown, fully tricked out PRM is going to claim it can do everything. It will manage affiliates. It will manage your co-op programs. It will, you know, keep track of how much you're supposed to pay the VAR in return for their participation at a trade event, trade show. You know, there are some very large and very complex. There are others which are focused mainly on the numbers. So it is highly dependent upon the size of your company and your marketplace. Another reason why I'm going to chicken out on giving a specific recommendation.
Exactly. And I'd say that it's more important that you invest the time in designing the right partner program before you worry about the PRM. First, design the right program, make sure it's clearly articulated, get your first view in. Once you get to, you know, a small critical mass, let's say around 20 or so, then you want to start looking at systems that can facilitate it. And as you grow from there, we can advise you on ones that are affordable without breaking the bank initially.
All right, next question is from Wanda Lee. Is there a breakdown of data of size of company / average contract value against channels?
We asked what was the primary methodology, ACV, average contract value, versus some of the other models that are used. I think ACV was the most popular. So we did ask that question, what was the primary means on how you compensate for multi-year and larger deals. And I believe that I think ACV and then followed by LTV. That is covered in the report. By the way, you can go online to the Softletter website and see the complete table of contents, which lists out all the topics and the crosstabs that are provided.
Great. And we have another question from Guy DeMemo. What is a good sales to sales rep total comp percentage?
Sales to sales. Oh, well, 50-50. I mean, that is the traditional model. The old model, the traditional model, which exists in one form or another, was pay me a base of 50, give me a commission of 5, not terribly realistic in SaaS, sell $1 million, and I make 100,000 for the year. And that model has persisted in not just in software, but in dozens of other industries for the last 40 or 50 years. Now in SaaS, I would say that your compensation your base will focus around the 50 to 60, and then your compensation, well, let's say you anticipate making 120 to 150, you can look at it in that respect. So I would say, it's more trending towards 8 or 9%. Now, of course, now we factor in kickers and overrides and accelerators and the vast gamut of things that people do, as well as clawbacks and all the rest of it, to arrive at an average. But you can anticipate, as we said, as you saw, I'd say the sweet spot is you're going to be paying commissions between 6 to 9% of sales. Anticipate that the salesperson is not efficient for you at all unless they're making 100,000, and as I said, that's probably too low. You can anticipate you're going to have to be comping them. They're going to have a shot at 120 to 140. So you can work the numbers out from using these variables and arrive at a pretty standardized idea of what the right model is. This can differ, again, based on your industry, but I'd say, 60, 40, 35, 70, 45, 55. It's kind of a spreadsheet exercise at this point.
All right, and last two questions. They're actually from me. So do the numbers you're discussing in today's session apply only to telesales or internal sales groups?
The numbers that we're using in almost every case fit with telesales. There's not a lot of difference in most respects. The one area where there's a significant difference is in many industries, a telesales rep's compensation will start to max out at around 6 figures, 100,000. It's certainly not uncommon in direct sales for those quotas to be for maximum compensation, reasonable maximum compensation to go to 150, 160. High quality salespeople are expensive. Good quality salespeople are pretty expensive too. Also, compensation numbers tend to go down, whereas in SaaS direct sales, you'd say between 6 and 9. I'd say in direct sales between 5 to 8. Though again, sometimes you'll have a very aggressive internal sales force where they're going to dial up those commissions and smile, and it's going to be smile and dial all day. So it will often depend upon the marketplace as to where those points are.
Okay, and Rick, I had one last question. You had a slide on some of the close time periods and stuff like that. Average time for new salespeople to close their first deals?
We don't have that slide in the presentation, but we do cover it in the report. If it's a new salesperson coming in and selling your product for the first time, it's going to be about 90 days before they, and we're talking again direct sales, not internal sales, which has slower, tends to have faster sales cycles, cheaper products. But it's going to take between 30 to 90 days for a new salesperson who hasn't come in, who comes in and isn't familiar with your product and has to learn it. And of course, one of the things you'll find out is finding a high quality salesperson means finding someone who has experience with your market, experience with your customers, and if not experience with your product, experience with your type of product. They can get up to speed much more rapidly. And of course, if they come in with their own book, their own client list that they've maintained over the years, those are premium salespeople, and you're going to be paying. You can anticipate for them. Don't stop. Even think about 100. Start going 150, 160 for their total comp package. And if they are as represented, they'll be well worth it. It's not easy finding those type of salespeople. They'll be snapped up rapidly when they come free.
All right. That's all the questions that have come in. Dina, any last thoughts? Rick, any last comments you'd like to make before we end the webinar? And I'd like to thank all of our attendees who stayed on. And we're going to be getting you the recording of this webinar within the next 24 hours.
Right.
No, I'd like to thank everyone for attending. I hope we provided a lot of meat and information. And we do, of course, urge you to take advantage of our special offers. We think that the value you will receive will be well worth it. And consider taking our staffing survey. We greatly appreciate it. You receive the complete summaries when you participate, as well as a copy of my book. Can't get any better than that.
Right. And thank you, Rick, for coming. I was just going to say thanks to Rick and to the SaaSMAX community. If you have other topics of interest related to the channel or sales or marketing and building your funnel, please let us know, because we're building out our speaker schedule for the year ahead, and we would love to take your requests into consideration. So thank you, everyone. And Laura, thank you for hosting and monitoring the webinar in a great way. And have a good day, everyone. And thanks again for coming. Rick, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Dina. Have a great day, everyone.
All right. Bye-bye, everyone.